Hi everyone, my name is BukkyNG and you're welcome to my class. Today we're talking about attitude and the power it has to shape our lives. As a way of introduction, attitude is a driving force that can essentially affect the way we respond when we find ourselves in situations such as negotiations, in the workplace, in our personal relationships, and it is the lens through which we see the world. It's the disposition we carry into the different situations or relationships that we have to deal with on a daily basis. And a positive attitude, which is what we'll be emphasizing a lot on today, can help us to achieve personal growth, success, happiness, really. And a negative attitude, on the other hand, can hinder progress, it can impede our potential, and is why we'll be talking about how to transcend from a negative attitude to a positive attitude in the different types of relationships and situations that we encounter on a daily basis. Understanding and cultivating a positive attitude is essential for living a fulfilling and meaningful life. And the reason is because sometimes the action or a split action, a split decision that we encounter or that we make when we find ourselves in some type of really situations, especially unexpected situations, can actually make or mar our relationships or even our workplace success, and sometimes even in business negotiations, which is why attitude really is a very profound concept that we need to pay some attention to. We're going to be focusing on attitude and the different types of relationships we would usually need to pay attention to what we say, the kind of decisions we make, how we address people, and just how we relate when we find ourselves in some situations or meetings or just being in an environment where you need to be self-aware and be careful about every single thing you say or do and how you present yourself. The first thing we'll be looking at is attitude as a mindset. Attitude is a mental and emotional stance that each and every one of us has towards life and the different challenges that we encounter from time to time. And it's the way we choose to interpret, and respond to events and circumstances that we find ourselves in. A lot of times we may not have control on the situation or the environment or the relationship, and sometimes we do have control. However, irrespective of whether you have control or not, the importance of how you respond in any situation cannot be overemphasized. And a mindset usually is something that we build over time. It has to do with our backgrounds, it has to do with our upbringing, it has to do with the different situations we've encountered over the years and how those situations have shaped us. And irrespective of whether you had it good or sometimes some people have, by way of or because of their personality or just generally how their disposition is on a regular basis, they have it easier or they are able to have a more positive attitude than others. But that does not necessarily make a person with a negative attitude a bad person, while a person with a positive attitude cannot generally be said to be a good person. So this attitude has nothing to do with whether you are good or bad. It's just about how you make decisions, how you respond to situations that you find yourselves in, how you navigate relationships on a regular basis. And that's what we're talking about, the mindset that we bring into the different situations, that we bring into the different relationships, whether in the workplace or personal relationship. Developing a positive attitude involves focusing on opportunities rather than obstacles and seeing setbacks as learning experiences. I remember starting my career and just realizing or experiencing, you know, the fact that people were having issues with me. I was having issues with my colleagues. I was having issues with my bosses. And I remember for a very long time, a number of years actually, I used to always feel like I was a bad person. I used to always feel like I was someone with a bad attitude, right? That was the feedback that I constantly got. And I remember sitting by myself a lot of times to try to figure out why I had that feedback, like what I was doing wrong and all of that. Because by way of personality, I tend to be a people pleaser. And so I couldn't understand why issues I wasn't having at home, I was having at work. It wasn't until I started moving through the ranks and had other people reporting to me that I started to realize that the challenge I had with my bosses was essentially that over the years, they never felt like I gave my all to the job. And this was because I always tried to be everything to everybody. And so I always had a problem with my work cutting into my family time or sacrificing a family event or my family time with work. And so when it came to days where maybe you will be required to come to the office on a weekend and things like that, I struggled with that. And I used to feel like I gave my all to the company Monday to Friday. Why will one single action of mine spoil every other thing that I thought I was doing well? But years later, years down the line, I started to realize that whatever type of, organization where you work, you need to understand what is important to them. You need to understand what they require from you to make them feel like you are on their side, you are for them, you are giving their all, to them, that you actually care about their results, what they consider to be results. And if that means, working on weekends or just generally doing more than you are required to do. And so that was the issue. But it reflected in my attitude, because when you say no to a boss, or when you don't even say yes or no, and you just don't show up, or you just don't do that thing, and you feel like every other thing that you do should be able to cover up for that part where you are failing, to them, they see it as you having an attitude problem. And these issues could affect you significantly in the workplace. Attitude often becomes a self fulfilling prophecy, because when you are in a relationship with people, whether they are platonic relationships or they are romantic relationships, family relationships, if you believe you can achieve something, if you believe you can do something, and you maintain a positive attitude towards the attainment of that goal, the likelihood that you would, persevere until you succeed in whatever it is that you are doing is usually very high. And sometimes, or on the flip side, when you have a negative attitude, this could also become a limitation to the achievement of whatever it is that you are working towards, and it could also prevent you from meeting your full potential. And what this really means is whatever you believe you can achieve, whatever you see you can actually get to touch. If you don't see it, you cannot achieve it. If you don't believe it, you cannot achieve it. So, irrespective of whether it's a work matter or it's a personal matter, the intentionality behind your attitude, whether you feel like this goal or this challenge is something that I can face head on, is something that I can, overcome. If it's a challenge or just a difficult project that you're working on and you feel like I can do this, that's, you talking to yourself, you encouraging yourself, or just positioning your mind to believe that this is something I can do. It may be difficult, but at least I'm willing to try to get this done. It can make all the difference whether you're successful eventually on the project, on the schoolwork. It could be schoolwork, it could be anything, it could even be a relationship that you're finding difficult. You are having issues, or there's some friction, and you choose by your own self, or to at least work on yourself or change your response to that person, change how you've been relating with that person, just because you want to try and see if a change in attitude would make a difference or will bring about a change for the better to that relationship. Now, attitude has influence on relationships. This is what we've been talking about. Our attitude, it plays a significant role in interpersonal relationships. And when you have, or when you choose to adopt a positive attitude, what it does is to create an environment of trust, empathy, and collaboration. So it could either be you being a team member in your workplace, or it could be you being a husband or a wife or a sister or even a daughter or a son, and you just generally choose that in this relationship, this is how I want to approach the relationship. This is how I want to be. This is who I want to be in this relationship. What's the decision you make can either create an environment where the other person feels like you can be trusted, or the other person feels like, you care, you want to listen, you actually want to, they feel like you always put yourself in their shoes to understand where they are coming from, to understand how they are feeling, to understand what they are going through. And what this does is it engenders that feeling of collaboration, that feeling of trust, that feeling of, I can work with this person. This is somebody I want to have in my corner. However, if you choose to adopt a negative attitude instead, what it can do is breed conflict, resentment, and even create a distance between you and your team members, between you and your significant other, between you and your siblings. And all of these things go a long way on our emotions, even on our physical well-being sometimes, because everything that you go through, whether it's a positive situation or a negative situation, would usually have some short term effects, some medium term effects, and sometimes long term effects on our health, on our wellness, on our emotional stability. And being aware of your relationships at all times and the impact it has on those around you is very, very important to build and maintain healthy relationships. A positive attitude would usually help you overcome adversity faster than when you approach, the situation with a negative attitude. Adversity really is a situation you find yourself at some point in time where you're going through something that you may not be happy about, or you feel like it's difficult, you feel like you you're having a tough time. That's what really adversity is. And whether you adopt a positive or a negative attitude is what would determine how you navigate the challenging times. And usually, having a positive attitude would help you go through the situation with resilience, with grace, and possibly could even make you overcome, that challenge or that situation faster than if you were adopting a negative attitude. And so instead of dwelling on difficulties or challenges, it's important to adopt an attitude that can allow you focus on solutions and opportunities for growth in that circumstance or that situation at that point in time. Now, in the workplace, attitude cannot be overemphasized. It is highly valued in professional settings. Employers, would more often than not seek individuals that have a positive and a can do attitude because they feel like they would get more productivity. Those sort of people are more adaptable and just generally more pleasant to work with. And so a positive attitude can help you achieve career advancement and success. A lot of times in the workplace, what you find is that you work with people that come from different backgrounds. You work with people that have different personalities. You work with people that see things in different ways from you. It is important that you are able to approach a relationship with the different people. You need to be able to understand that the way I approach person A should be different from the way I approach person B, particularly when these people, what they feel about you, the feedback they have about you would usually impact on your appraisals, your opportunity for promotions, and just generally determine whether you have a peaceful, let's use that word, a peaceful environment to work with. Sometimes when you feel like your boss is difficult and so you too you have to be difficult with that person because you feel like the issues they have with you are not professional issues, they are personal issues. And sometimes we would usually feel that, well, we're in the workplace, let's focus on the work, how I talk should not be a source of concern to you as long as I deliver results. What we don't understand is that it's a holistic approach, it's a holistic relationship. And sometimes, a lot of times actually, the people you work with, particularly if you work with them over a long period of time, could usually become important people in your life. From the workplace, there's every opportunity to meet people that would affect or determine your progress over the years. In the future, you could meet your spouse, you could meet your future business partners, you could meet future clients, in the workplace. And so, this is why we should not feel like relationships in the workplace do not matter. Every relationship counts, irrespective of whether you're meeting the person for the first time, or it's a one time encounter, or it's an encounter with a client. Every relationship makes a difference. What people say when you are not there can go a long way in determining something in your life. It could be a promotion, it could just even be a referral that can change the trajectory of your business or your career. And so we should not take for granted the first time impression that people make about us. Sometimes we could meet as spouses, we could meet, customers, we could meet people that would end up becoming very important in our lives through one time encounters. And so it is very important that we are always putting our best foot forward in whatever situation we're in whatever environment we find ourselves in. And more importantly, even when you are in a relationship with people already, taking them for granted is not an option. And so thinking that you can get away with an action or some type of attitude just because you feel like you have built a positive bank account of good behavior with them for some time, and you feel like you can make a withdrawal from that bank account, so you excuse your behavior. What we need to understand is that how one person will take that action or that encounter will be different from how another person will react to you in that kind of situation. And we should also understand that there are some people that do not forget, or they find it very difficult to forget, or even if they forgive, they don't forget, and they don't give second chances. And so losing that first chance may mean that you don't get to have another chance, at least with that person. Which is why, even though nobody is perfect, it is essential that we always try our best at every point in time. I think for me, what is crucial is that knowing that you tried your best, knowing that whatever you did was not intentional, knowing that you can find your peace when you go back over the situation and how you reacted is most important. And also being able to take correction from yourself, not from any other person, acknowledging that you did not try your best in that situation, acknowledging that you could have done better, and talking to yourself and telling yourself that you will do better in the future, that given that same situation or even in any other situation that you find yourself, that promising, making that conscious promise to yourself that you will do things better the next time, or even going a step further to apologize for whatever it is that you did. That counts for something, if not to someone else, to you. I'll give an example. I remember at a certain point in my career, and this was more than 10 years after I had started working, I had an issue where, to be honest, I wasn't, I did not do anything wrong, but I had a subordinate who did something wrong, but I felt like as the team lead, I had to take responsibility for whatever it was that that person did. Where I went wrong in this situation was the fact that I thought that to get ourselves out of that situation, we shouldn't let the other party know that we were wrong. So I was trying to respond to the situation in such a way that we were not wrong, trying to cover up what my subordinate did. And in this instance, it had to do with a customer. And because of that, my boss found out one way or the other and she got upset. And she had a very big problem with me. Our problem really was just how I responded to the customer, how I did not show empathy, how she felt like I was being rude to the customer. And it became a really serious problem. She gave me a query. To be honest, all of this was not the issue. The issue for me was after everything happened, I realized that I needed to apologize to her. Someone advised that I apologize to my boss. And that really upsets me because I felt like I did not do anything wrong. My subordinate did something wrong. I saw myself as maybe the victim because I felt like I was only trying to help. I was only trying to cover up for my subordinate. How did the situation turn around to become that I was now the one in the wrong? And so I felt really, really bad. And being asked to go and apologize to my boss, it was tough for me. I did not want to do it. I truly struggled, and I didn't apologize for days, but I did eventually. And what I got out of that experience was prior to that time, I had always had an anger problem to some certain extent. And this was from childhood, you know, growing into being an adult and all of that. But that particular experience humbled me. And after I apologized to my boss, I cannot explain it. I don't know how it happened or what actually changed. But from that day, I found out that saying sorry became very easy. Apologizing to people, whether I was right or wrong, became very easy. And what that did was relationships became easier for me because I was always I found it easier to allow people just get away with things, not in a bad way. And maybe I'm not explaining it, very well, but I would say that that experience changed me for the better. I let go of so much anger. I let go of that feeling of wanting to prove in every situation that I am not the one that was wrong. I'm not the one that should apologize. Apologizing became a very easy thing for me to do. Now we're going to be talking about cultivating a positive attitude. Some people naturally possess that behavior. They are always positive. They are always, whatever situation they find themselves, they have the flexibility to be able to respond positively at least 90, 95% of the time. But for some others, it's a quality that would need to be cultivated and developed over time. And the good news is this can be done, right? And strategies for fostering a positive attitude usually includes, being grateful, practicing gratitude, mindfulness, and self awareness. For me, self awareness is the most important strategy, and that's what I would be focusing on. Being intentional is very important, especially as you become a parent, as you become a team lead, as you become an owner of a business or businesses. You cannot, as you become a leader, you cannot afford to have excuses or make excuses for the things that you do, for the way that you behave, right? And so, this is why intentionality and always being self aware is very important. I read a book recently, Clear Thinking, by someone called Shane. I can't remember the last name. And one thing I took away from that book was the fact that the guy said you can always pause before making a decision, before saying something, before responding in any situation. Always take a breath. Always pause to think about what you're saying. It could be 5 seconds, it could be 10 seconds. And I understand how difficult that can be sometimes, because in some situations that pause would usually seem to other people like you don't know what you should say or you don't have the answers. But I think that once you practice it over and over again, and then people begin to realize that this is just who you are, this is how you respond, this is how you behave. A lot of those times, when you eventually respond, your response is positive. Then they get to understand that this is who you are, and it becomes okay. And so we cannot always allow factors outside our control, or people, what other people think, what other people feel, to always determine how we respond to situations. Also, surrounding yourself with positive influences, positive people can help you change your thought patterns and make a significant difference in your life. Attitude is very important for your well being. Attitude, there's a direct correlation really between attitude and your overall well being. A positive attitude will contribute to your physical health. You would have, increased satisfaction. You get increased satisfaction out of life. You have a greater sense of purpose, and all of these things essentially just makes you become an optimist, someone who always has a positive attitude towards life, and you become infectious to other people in a good way, which can go a long way in impacting or creating the right environment for yourself. And in conclusion, I would say attitude is not just a fleeting emotion. It's not a it's not something that can be underemphasized, right? It's a force that shapes our lives. And by choosing a positive attitude, we can overcome challenges, we can build meaningful relationships, and it just helps us with our personal growth, our success, the success of our relationships, whether it's work relationships or personal relationships or family relationships. And attitude also helps us, it determines not only how we experience the world, but also how the world responds to us. To stay updated on our events and other courses that we offer, please visit BukkyNG, where you'll find a lot of resourceful documents and links and posts that can help you with every aspect of life, from your finances to, being a better manager, or even in your leadership quest, or whatever other area of your life you are looking to develop yourself. Every resource you need can be found on Bukky.ng, and you also can find our contact details so that you can reach out to us in for with any questions, or just for any guidance that you may require, or even to request for any of our paid services. Thank you very much.